turn the mic on.
I'm going to say that wasn't me that was technical then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it still get picked up on that. It's pretty good, the built-in mic.
Should you say AOA?
Well, don't worry about it.
AO.com.
They're not, I mean, it's fine, that's fine, great, okay. Okay to me. So, Gloria, first of all, perhaps you could start at the beginning. How did the story unfold?
Well, my fridge had broken down, and we had ordered a new fridge from an online company who were delivering between 7 and 8 in the morning. After 4 days and 4 fridges that were dented, and getting up so early because we take tablets to help us sleep, the 5th fridge arrived on the 5th consecutive day. I mean, I have to say the company was very good, but it was 7:30. I was in my dressing gown. My husband answered the phone and was told that it was BT and that somebody had got into our router overnight and they needed to do some remedial work. So he said, I'm no good with computers, I'll give you to my wife. So I didn't question that it was BT. I should have done, but I didn't. And also, we were tired because we'd been up in the fridge and I was worried about getting a fridge for Christmas. And I went to use my husband's Mac laptop and they didn't want that. They wanted me to switch on the main computer. And once I'd done that, she upscaled me to the next person who asked me some questions, then upscaled me again to a very nice young man who was keeping me busy, asking me about, was I ready for Christmas, you know, do I have family, you know, what sort of house do we live in, blah, blah, blah. And he was...
So at that stage they were playing to what you were already thinking, even though they perhaps didn't know that.
Oh, yes. Yes, because I'm used... We have so many problems usually with the internet that I'm used to being passed up and up because they can't deal with it. So I was suckered, and also Rob was going off my husband was going off the deep end because another fridge had come dented. So he was walking in and out, and I'm on the computer talking to this chap on the phone, and he's telling me what to do. So I wasn't really 100% concentrating on what I was doing. He told me that hackers had got in and that they were watching the computer as I'd got it on. And told me that the hackers had put a program called Trusteer on so that they could control the computer. So he said the first thing to do was to take that off. I didn't know what Trusteer was, so I took it off.
So it sounded like he knew what he was talking about.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. He told me exactly what to do. And then he said, because the hackers were seeing what we were doing, he needed to take control of the computer and black the screen out so that the hackers couldn't see what was happening. And then he said that the next thing to do is to safeguard your money. And he said, you know, with the black screen, he said, I won't be able to see what you're inputting. So if you could just go into the accounts. And I was doing this, and then all of a sudden there was a lull in him talking, because obviously he was doing something else. He was.
And so at that point where there was the lull, how were you feeling at that particular point? If you can remember.
I just felt that. I felt it was taking a long time, because by this time it had taken about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, and I'm still in my dressing gown. My husband's walking in and out of the room, making comments about this fridge. And when there was the lull in conversation, I suddenly thought, this isn't right. You know, I'd suddenly sort of come to, and I said to my husband, ring a friend of ours who's a computer expert, and just check that, you know, I'm doing the right thing. And I heard him yell no from the other end of the house. I put the phone down, pulled the plug out of the computer, and said, I think I've really mucked up. So we got our mobile phones, and Rob was trying to contact one bank, I was trying to contact the other. Half an hour it took to get through to the two banks, NatWest and Santander.
So at this point, how are you feeling now? Because you've realised it's happened.
Dreadful. Because Rob had logged into, my husband had logged into his Mac, gone into his bank account and seen that they'd taken out £16,000. And of course he was really upset. I was devastated to think I was stupid enough to fall for it. But it was a set of circumstances that came together. We were tired from getting up for 5 days on the trot early and the fridge. I'm thinking I'm going to have a fridge for Christmas. So I wasn't really concentrating on what I was doing. When we did get through, NatWest were marvellous. Changed the six-figure PIN or whatever it is. And Rob, my husband, could just carry on with his bank account. And although with the money gone, Santander, on the other hand, because the money had been passed through PayPal, Nationwide, this, that and the other, froze all my bank accounts, including my business one. I couldn't get any money out for at least 2 weeks. Without going in to a branch with my passport and birth certificate and then having to speak to somebody on their fraud department when you're standing in a bank with people all round you, because it was one of these booths. It was just awful. And the chap I spoke to at Santander treated me like a 3-year-old and really basically said, you've done something really stupid. You know, we try and tell all our customers to be careful, and it just made me feel so bad.
You've got one bank being sympathetic,
yes,
and the other the complete opposite.
Yes.
Then. How did that make you feel? You've already had, in a sense, the perfect storm of circumstances. With you feeling tired, with them perhaps opportunistically ringing up at that time in the morning with the hope of catching you off your guard. How do you feel then when it's a bit of a roller coaster of emotion, isn't it?
Oh, I had a feeling in the pit of my stomach that was hollow, but like a lump. And I had that for about 2 weeks. I was, my husband said I was visibly shaken. I've never felt like that before in my life. I just felt that I'd let everybody down. And how could I have done something so stupid? Because you watch the television, you hear about these things on the news, and you think, well, I wouldn't do that. I know you don't let somebody take control of your computer. But I did. And when I think back to it, it was crazy. I know you shouldn't do that. But it was just everything that was going on, fridges arriving, different delivery men, and me in my dressing gown. It's about 7:30 in the morning, and you're not really with it. But I did feel awful.
And in terms of the police, for example, did you call them, and how did they react?
My husband called the police, and they weren't interested at all. They said it wasn't a police matter, and it was something to do with the financial authority.
Probably the Financial Conduct Authority. But so how do you feel about the police not contributing effectively to your feeling of absolute... Well, it's difficult to put into words, I guess.
Well, you wonder who's going to help you. The police saying they're not interested when it's fraud, to me, is incomprehensible. It's not right, is it?
So what sort of things do you think would help, looking to the future, having had the experience and fortunately having got all your money back, which obviously must make you feel a little bit better? What would you say to the future? What do you think people should do, organisations should do, to help minimise this type of situation?
I think that lots of people are not aware of the scams, and I think that's the most important thing, to tell people about the scams and all the different sorts of scams, because they're so plausible. This chap was in another job, he'd be fantastic, because he was so pleasant And I can remember thinking, what a nice chap. And then afterwards you think, what a complete and utter bastard. But it's information. It's information, and also, like they said they were from BT, there should be some sort of, not code word, but something so that you know it's them. Because looking back, they didn't even know our name.
I mean, BT will say, and we're talking to them later on in the programme, will say that they're not necessarily numbers that BT have created. They're just randomly going through sequences of numbers. So in that respect, how could BT help, do you think?
By making sure everybody has got a caller display so that you know where it's coming from. But I'm supposed to be on the telephone preference scheme. I'm registered for that, and yet we still get all these phone calls about car accidents and PPI and everything else. And I don't know whether we're now on a suckers list, because we seem to get an awful lot of phone calls. But they get short shrift.
Thank you very much indeed, thanks. Just sit there a moment. Okay, great. So we want to give your arm a rest now. So telephone preference service, because I think